What's up, captains? Welcome back to the other decks. My name's Casual Dobo, and today we're going to be talking about the sealed format for the One Piece TCG pre-release. So if you don't know, for the second set, OP02 Paramount War, One Piece is going to be doing a pre-release event in which stores can choose to do a sealed format. But what exactly is a sealed format? Well, funny you mentioned that, because I have the official rules right in front of me. So let's go over it and talk through it. So if you've seen them already, this actually works very much like the Digimon pre-release, if you come from that game, in which you get a certain number of cards and then build a 40 card deck from it. Now you might be thinking to yourself, it's impossible to build a 40 card deck normally based on what you pull because they're not all the same color. Luckily for us, they actually altered the rules a little bit. So, as it says here, unlike standard play, you can ignore the normal deck building color restriction based on your leader and can include cards of any color in your deck. And there are some additional special rules for deck building. So here is what Bandai is suggesting. First, you get 6 packs, and each participant should have the same number of packs. Now this might vary a little bit, but 6 packs is typically the standard. And this event is BYOL, bring your own leader. So you can use any leader card from the previous set, starter decks, whatever, to use in this event. Because the thing that's different than Digimon is in One Piece, you do need to have a leader card, right? And in the packs, if you've opened packs, leader cards are not necessarily guaranteed. So in order to mitigate this, Bandai is allowing you to bring your own. However, you can use any leader that you pull in the packs themselves. So if you really want to play like a Vankov, you can. And we'll talk about the leaders that I think are the most interesting in this format in a little bit. One other thing, do bring your own Dawn as well, so BYOD. And so we sort of talked about this already, but after opening 6 packs, you're going to build a 40 card deck as opposed to the 50 card deck that is in normal constructed. So 40 cards, 10 Dawn, there are no banned or restricted cards, and this is an interesting note I didn't know about. Players can include as many copies of cards with the same card number as they like. So there is no 4 card limit. So if you, I don't know, get a bunch of Vistas for some ungodly reason, go ham. Just play them all. And then any cards left over from the original deck construction, so once you have your 40, those will be treated as sideboard cards, which you can swap in during like the in-between games. And I guess it should go without saying, but players keep any cards that they open. Just in case people try to scam me, you know? So I think this is actually an important piece to cover, just because, you know, we've talked about colors not really mattering in terms of, you know, how you construct your deck based on your leader, because normally if you have a monocolor red leader, you need to play just red. But say you want to play that Luffy, you can play any color you want. But the thing is, cards that have specific requirements, like type requirements, still matter, right? So you can ignore color requirements, but you can't ignore any sort of text requirements. Let's move this over so it's a little bit more legible. So the example that they have here is the leader card Dofi from set 1. It says that you can only search for the 7 Warlords of the Sea type character cards when triggering his ability. That means you can only search for those types. So let's take that out to what that could mean for like OP02, right? Anything with Whitebeard in its type as like a parameter for that effect is not going to be that good for you, you know? Anything that requires you to have a Whitebeard leader, anything that requires you to have a Wano Country type specific card in your hand to trash, right? Or play for cheap if you're, you know, looking for that Kinemon. And so while color restrictions go out the door, type restrictions are still in play. So you're going to want to keep that in mind as you're constructing your deck through this event. Alright, so let's quickly talk about what leaders I think are going to be real good in the sealed format. First of all, I think Kid is going to be an absolute menace, once again plaguing the whole entire sealed meta, just because strong hits twice in a row is always going to be powerful. But, you know, the sort of more realistic version of this is there's a lack of blockers in sealed format, right? In constructed, you typically try and aim for what, like 8 to 10 blockers, depending on how defensive you get, maybe even more, like 12. But if you just look at what is available in the set itself, there's only like 13 cards that have the keyword blocker on it, right? And there's no guarantees as to how many of these cards you're going to be seeing in your 6 packs, right? You can get a bunch of them. You can get none of them. And even if we're taking a look at just these cards, some of them are not actual blockers, right? So Toki, for example, needs a Kazuki Odin on field in order for it to gain blocker. So with the fact that you might not guaranteed have a Odin in your pulls, nor a Yamato, this one, if this is your only blocker, I would say try and find a different strategy. Honestly, probably the best blockers here are going to be Mr. 3, Borsalino, and maybe Luffy. And then any of your vanilla blockers. But all this is to explain that I think aggro is going to be the way for this pre-release, right? And if your opponent doesn't have blockers up and doesn't really have the counter power, Kid is just menacing. And I feel like a lot of people have been saying that, and so I'm expecting a lot of Kids to essentially be at these pre-release. But is Kid the only leader that is viable? No, absolutely not. Let's take a look at Zoro, right? Zoro, fantastic ability. It's an anthem that gives plus 1k to all of your characters. Luffy is also good just for that Dawn flexibility, just because you're not really sure what you're going to get in the packs. And honestly, a sleeper hit is probably Uta, because she is the queen of vanillas. And if you look at the set, a lot of the sort of normally junk cards that come in are vanillas. And so to be able to give them a bit of a power boost, get some extra value out of them, is awesome. And plus, vanillas tend to be some of your more high-powered characters, but also cheaper to play than, comparable characters at similar power levels. So could be an interesting strategy if you think you have enough time to, set up your board and then swing out. But yeah, I think those are the leaders that are probably the most interesting. You can probably bring a Kaido just with the sort of thought that your ability is going to be used late in the game as sort of closer to a final hit. And then honestly, kind of thinking just off the top of my head, King actually kind of has some interestingness, some intrigue about it, just because once you get to Hendon, if you're not relying on the Dawn minus stuff, that could be a very powerful effect to give everything of your opponents minus 1k. And if you don't have to, be stuck with just purple, you don't have to rely on Dawn minus abilities. So you can combine King's effect with red removal, right? So King might also be a sleeper. Some of the sort of smaller, less meta decks I talked about in my OP01 meta video might get a little bit of shine in the pre-release. Alright, and then to kind of quickly talk about, deck building for this, it's a little strange because it really depends on what you are able to get from your 6 packs. So you gotta do a little bit of analysis, right? But I would first actually honestly look for anything that has blocker on it. If you can get as many blockers as you can into it, into your deck, that would probably be the best. That's kind of how it played out for a lot of the early pre-releases for Digimon. So kind of like that strategy here. And then counters, any 2k counters, I would insert them in. Any 1k counters, honestly, I'd insert them in. And then if you notice that you have one particular archetype over the others, might be worth building towards that, especially if you can find, a searcher. Say Buggy, the Impel Down searcher. I think that the purple Impel Down actually has some interesting use cases for this. I was just taking a look at this, but Minotaur, right? Jailer Beast, 4 cost, 5k, counter plus 1k, beautiful. Double attack, naturally has double attack. And if your opponent doesn't have blockers, this could be really good. Sure, you don't get the on-KO ability, but to be honest, the on-KO ability was kind of useless. Also, any event cards that are essentially KO spells, kill spells, anything that can knock out your opponent's characters are always going to be good. And then in most cases, the super rares are probably going to be your high-end cards that will be hopefully your primary attackers. Now that said, I will say the blue vanillas in this set plus Uta, very fascinating combination. So yeah, that is kind of my quick guide to the first pre-release event that we have for the One Piece TCG for OP02 Paramount War. I know it was a bit of a quick video, but that's because I'm currently editing some other gameplay videos, some deck profiles for OP02. Hoping to launch that this week. Smoker versus Zoro, look out for it. But I do want to give a huge quick shout out to a couple of videos that popped up on my timeline. Been meaning to watch them, but they are talking about the pre-release event. First one up is Cardi Kaizoku, who did a great breakdown of a bunch of things, but knows that they had a sealed Paramount War pre-release event. Their videos are absolutely fantastic, so go check them out. And I'm looking at the channel right now, almost at 1,000 subscribers, so go and click that subscribe button. Great content for OP02, by the way. And then the other one I noticed was Uni X TCG, famous in his own right, but puts out great analysis of all of the sets, and so he did a primer video on the pre-release, so go check that out. I know I am once I finish editing this video. But yeah, that is everything for the pre-release. Let me know which leader you're going to be bringing to your locals, and let me know which leader you're most excited about in OP02. I'm really interested to hear your comments, hear your thoughts on this, because it's a very exciting time to be a One Piece TCG player. Second set is about to come out. But anyway, I think that'll do it for me, so thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And captains, remember, build what you like, play what you love, and I'll catch you in the next video.